I want to tell you about a series of events that have happened to me, starting in 2012 and could still currently be happening. My story is what I have recently found out could be called the Glimmer Man. I had never heard of anyone else seeing anything like I've experienced before, and I have also never seen the movie Predator. I know, lame, but I just never have. My close friend Nick is obsessed with all things supernatural and I am obsessed with true crime, so he suggested I watch The Missing 411, The Hunted. I did, loved it, and by the end I was pretty disturbed because I had never before heard of anyone seeing something that was essentially a translucent figure before like I had. It really took me back because for years I have thought that either I had a psychotic break, or that I'm a medium and can see ghosts. It never occurred to me that it could be something paranormal or anything like that. I told my friend Nick that I had seen a translucent being before, but that's all the detail I could admit to him. He told me I had probably seen what's called the Glimmer Man and sent me a podcast so I could have my sanity validated. I have never told a single soul these stories. I have tried to block it out of my mind because I realized after the fact that it could be something sinister, and if it wasn't, then I couldn't tell anyone because I was sure they would think I was insane. This has really freaked me out for a lot of years now. I vowed I would never tell anyone, but after listening to the other stories, I really think I need to. I refer to this thing as a mass because that's the best way I could describe it. Physically it was translucent and had no discernible edges, however I could tell it was made of something. If you took light, got it to refract through a prism and took a picture of it, then cut that picture into 1/4 inch squares and faced them every single direction you can, all at random, that's what it looked like. I could see the blue, green and red bouncing back to my eyes, but it all moved like static, so I couldn't hook on to a single section or color for long. This description is the same for every time I've seen it. The shape and size are the only thing that changed, and it was by no means smooth. Usually the upper half would be sort of distended, but in a very rough, almost rocky cliff-like shape. One last thing before I start. 2 months before the first incident, my roommate Kylie made a suicide attempt that led to her accidentally drowning in the Boise River. It was not actually her intention, but very long story short, she passed away. I say this because I thought that this Glimmer Man was her coming back as a ghost at the time. I thought she had come back to talk to me. I wanted in my mind to believe it was her. I say that to explain why I did not panic when I saw the thing on the first incident. I cannot explain why I was so calm on the second. So here it goes. October 2012, I had moved to Portland, Oregon from Boise, Idaho in the wake of my roommate's death. I was in my room alone at about 11 p.m. My room has a sliding glass door that connects straight to the backyard. I looked over towards the door in the corner of the room and I see a strange mass that was about 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. I would estimate the depth to be 3 feet as well, and was completely translucent. I blinked because I had assumed it was my eyes playing tricks on me, but it was still there. I felt very calm. The figure was very obviously focused on me. It didn't have eyes, but it's almost as if the top part of it was leaned in a little closer than the rest, and if I moved around the room, it would turn in my direction. Immediately I think this is a ghost, it needs to tell me something. So I reached out my hand and the mass came towards me and lifted my hand, very gently and weakly, but I did not have to use the regular amount of muscle it takes to lift my own arm. It was clearly lifting my arm for me. I would describe the feeling as if you took two opposite magnets and tried to force them together, not the strength of it, but just like an invisible force that you can physically feel pushing you. It was completely even pressure where it would touch me, and it could move my hand and arm if I had it relaxed. I held out my arm and asked it to tell me who it was. The mass pushed on my arm to the left and led me through my room to a group of magazine posters on the wall. It lifted my hand up to the posters and put my hand over a picture of a band I had liked. This is a band Kylie loved as well, so I said move my hand up if yes and side to side if no, but are you Kylie? The mass moved my hand up. I got very emotional, cried immediately, but I held it together because I wanted to talk to her. I went and got a blank notebook and a pen and asked the mass to write to me what it wants to say while I held the pen. The mass would move my hand while I had it on the paper, but none of the drawings made any sense, so I asked it to move the pen instead. I was barely holding on the pen, I just had it between my fingers to keep it upright. The mass started to move the pen across the page. I realized that I couldn't be imagining things because I could literally see the pen moving by itself, even though I was still holding the bottom of it slightly. This went on for probably 2 hours. I tried and tried to get this thing write something legible, but nothing looked like any type of letter, it was all just strange designs and shapes. I believe I still have this journal in my parents' storage area in Idaho. I plan on finding it and sending pictures of it once I leave Alaska this fall. This is where things get really nuts. What I am going to say next is why I have never told anyone any part of this story before. If someone told me this, I would never think they were sane. My new roommate Alexa came into my room to ask me who I was talking to. All of a sudden the mass got very tiny, like the size of a mouse, and it sat in my hand. I told her I think Kylie is here talking to me and to watch this. I say please move the pen for me. The pen and my hand start to move across the paper and Alexa freaked out. She said this is insane and she doesn't know what's happening, but she said I need to stay away from her for the night. I was honestly too preoccupied to care about her reaction and we didn't get along well anyways, so I just let her go. She goes to bed and the mass gets really big, skinnier than before but probably 2 feet taller than the start. It starts pushing my hand left and leads me to the door, out to my living room and to my front door. I said no, I'm not going, and walked back to my room, but it just keeps putting this pressure on my hand to get me to go out in the living room again. I oblige because at this point, I am convinced that this is like the lost soul of my close friend and nothing she could do would be dangerous. I go outside and it leads me to my car. I must have gone back in for my keys and coat because I remember wearing a coat, but I don't remember exactly how I got it or my keys. At this point I'm in the car and I tell the mass move my hand left or right for turns, up to stop and down for forward. The mass leads me out of my neighborhood and down at least a full mile to an area that is sort of industrial but also like an abandoned park. I don't know how to describe it totally, and this is the only time I've ever been to this location. There were several big trees surrounding this place. It was like an open sort of park behind an industrial building, so there were no lights and there were several random pieces of abandoned scrap metal, just assorted random things everywhere. I got out and it was very clear that the mass was putting pressure on me to go forward. I'm going wherever it's telling me to go. We get to this 6 feet tall and 10 feet wide-ish metal structure that has a little ladder on the side. It wants me to go up the ladder, so I climbed it. Then it's jolting my hand forward, but forward is the ground below. It wants me to jump off the structure, which I did one time because it wasn't too high and I sat down before I jumped to lessen the impact. Then the mass puts pressure on my hand side to side, which we had agreed was no, leads me back to the ladder and signals up like it wants me to climb. At this point, I'm realizing that I don't think this is my dead friend anymore. I'm thinking something is tricking me, but I also didn't want to completely give up in case it was her. I climb up one more time and stood at the top. The mass signaled me to jump, but I told it no. I said it's not fair because I'm alive and this could hurt me, so if you have something to tell me, you need to find another way. I climbed down from the ledge and the mass tried twice more to lead me back to the metal structure. I just couldn't be there anymore alone in the dark in a weird part of Portland. I didn't want to be arrested or killed, so I said enough, I'm going home. The mass tried to control my hand the entire ride home, even getting out of my car and walking up to my house. But keep in mind, the pressure is not that strong, so I was easily able to ignore it. I walked straight to my room and I kept feeling the pressure on my arm trying to get me to go outside. At this time, and for the whole time we were on our outing, the mass was about the size of a basketball. I tried one last time to communicate with the mass via pen and journal, but I still couldn't get anything legible, so I decided to tell it that it's time to go. I walked out back and told the mass it's time to go. If you are Kylie, then I hope you go to heaven now, but I can't do anything further, so you need to leave. The mass went about 10 to 15 feet in the air and hovered. It was big at this point, at least 7 feet, and then I walked back inside and closed the sliding glass door. I was hoping it was gone, but I saw the mass a few more times out of the corner of my eye. I chose to ignore it and just kept repeating, "You need to go away, I can't do anything for you, I'm sorry," and eventually it was gone. I didn't see it again for a long time. I never talked about it and my roommate never brought it. I had decided I must have a strange ability to talk to ghosts, but I obviously cannot tell the good from the bad. So I knew that I couldn't communicate with them if I ever saw them, for my own safety. About 6 months goes by, I moved into a new house in Portland with my brother and close friend. I drove down to Southern California for the Coachella Music Festival in April 2013. A friend and I drove down for the weekend and then had to drive all the way back up the I-5 back to Oregon, but he had to drive because I dropped my driver's license on the first day of Coachella, so I had no ID. As soon as we crossed over the Oregon border, we stopped in a town, I believe Ashland, with a DMV so I could get a replacement temporary ID and share the driving. I had to fix my makeup before I went to get my picture taken and all that, so we stopped into a grocery store to use the bathroom. I believe it was a Safeway. As soon as I got into the bathroom, I saw it, a vibrating translucent static mass just standing in the corner very ominously. I looked straight at it and assumed it was a ghost, and I thought it was probably lost if it's just sitting here in this bathroom. I can't explain why I did this. I'm not actually a brave person whatsoever, but at the time I just felt overwhelmingly calm. I can't express to you how unlike myself that is for me to do. I proceeded to fix all of my makeup in the mirror, then I turned around and looked at the mask that was still very obviously there, and I said, "You look lost. You can come with me if you want." My thought process at the time was that maybe I'll get another chance to help some lost soul or something. I had blocked out most of my first experience and wasn't immediately remembering how terrifying it was. I did not touch the mask this time, but I could feel it following me in the same way you can feel something watching you. I walked out of the store and to the car where my car buddy was. He never mentioned anything about the mask being in the car, which could be because he slept almost the whole rest of the way, but I could see it in the rear view mirror from time to time. This mask never changed size or shape. It was always about 4 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide, sort of rectangular but very rounded. As we drove, I started to remember how bad of an idea this could be and realized I didn't want to do it anymore and that I didn't have anything left to say to the mass. When we got back to Portland, the mass followed me inside my house and stayed in my room for the next 2 days. I ignored it almost the whole time, and I started to feel guilty about that because I had told it to come with me initially. The night before the last time I saw it, I told it, "I'm sorry, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't think I can help you, you should leave so you can find someone who can." The mass stayed in the corner all night, and then the next day it was gone forever. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more paranormal stories on the Paranormal Portal.